Let's start this off with one of the best bats on the market, Kyle Schwarber. Now, we've been hearing a lot of buzz about him lately, like the Reds showing strong interest, while the Phillies do very much want to bring him back, and other teams in the mix as well, like the Red Sox, Orioles, Mets, and even the Pirates have shown some interest, for crying out loud. Now, it just feels like there's a lot of buzz on him lately, and to me, his market feels pretty much known at this point, so I think we get a decision sooner rather than later. Now, my guess is he ends up back with the Phillies, but we also had another report recently from Phillies beat writer Todd Zalecki saying no deal was close. Now, that doesn't mean a deal can't happen, but I would think with all the noise in him lately, they'll start to step up their efforts a little bit. Never doubt Dave Dombrowski when it comes to getting a deal done. Then again, let's say it does end up getting a little hairy out there and teams involved really start to push the envelope. Sure, Schwarber does have a good relationship with the Phillies organization and the city of Philadelphia, but since he's probably going to get less years, I can see those other teams involved really stepping up their efforts for him because they're not going to have to commit to a really long-term deal. Now, I don't think his hometown Reds or the Pirates are going to end up landing him. Sure, I would love that, but they just don't spend money on the big deals like that. So I think it's going to come down to the Phillies, Red Sox, or the Mets. Now, like I said, my guess is he does end up back with the Phillies, but I would really look out for the Red Sox. They need power in the lineup, and he had a good stint there back in 2021 after the trade deadline, helping them get to the ALCS. He also has a good relationship with the manager Alex Cora. Now, the question is, how far would they be willing to go, since there are reports out there that they only want to spend on one of the top free agents? So if that ends up being the case, I think it's more likely they end up bringing back Bregman, who is a perfect fit with the Red Sox. Speaking of Alex Bregman, I'm going to say he ends up back with the Red Sox during the winter meetings. Now, I've been thinking all along he's just too good of a fit for the Red Sox. Solid right-handed bat that fits Fenway Park like a glove, good infield defense that the Red Sox really need, and a good leader in the clubhouse. He did well with the young guys coming up this past year as well. So I think when you combine that with his market, and at least to me, that doesn't have a better fit than the Red Sox. I mean, sure, there's plenty of other teams that I could see showing some interest. We've heard the Cubs lately showing some renewed interest after showing some last year, but they already have a full infield unless they traded away Nico Horner or maybe move Matt Shaw into more of a utility role. Even so, I have a hard time seeing the Cubs offering him more money and years than they did last year. It was a 4-year offer last year, a little over $100 million. So I don't know if the Cubs are going to do that this time around. There's also the Tigers reportedly back in the mix, and I do see the fit there, but I put them in the same boat as the Cubs. Will they go further than they did last offseason? They offered him 6 years and around $180 million, which didn't get it done. Now, I would imagine for the Tigers, since they could use another hitter, why wouldn't they go after a younger bat like Bo Bichette, who I think would fit perfectly there? He's younger, and he fits their timeline a little bit better. I just think in the end, with Scott Boras and the Red Sox going to be at the same venue, they'll come together at some point, stop playing this game of chicken, and work something out. However, I will throw a slight wrench in there. And speaking of Bo Bichette, I wonder if the Red Sox could get aggressive for him if Boras and Bregman want to wait things out more. I mean, if the Blue Jays have their eyes set on Kyle Tucker, even after signing Dylan Cease, who's going to cost a lot more than Bichette, then I wonder if that could open the door for the Red Sox. When it comes to the winter meetings, it won't feel right unless the Yankees make a splash. Now, whether you love the Yankees or hate the Yankees, you know Brian Cashman is going to do something. He always does something at the winter meetings. He signed Max Fried and traded for Devin Williams last year, traded for Juan Soto a couple of years ago, re-signed Aaron Judge right after Arson Judge signed with the Giants. I mean, shoot, go back farther than that. You had Garrett Cole back in 2019, trading for Giancarlo Stanton a little bit before that, along with signing CC Sabathia and AJ Burnett during the same winter meetings back in 2009. He always does something, and with the Yankees yet to really do anything, minus Trent Grisham accepting the QO, I think they're going to end up doing something. Now, the question is, what is that going to be? Now, the easy answer is re-signing Cody Bellinger, who had a great first season with the Yankees. Or could it be a trade? Now, as of right now, you got Aaron Judge out in right, Trent Grisham out in center field, and Jason Dominguez out in left, along with Spencer Jones getting close to Major League ready down in the minor leagues. To be honest, I think they could make some kind of a trade, whether they bring back Bellinger or not. If they brought him back, they could still move Dominguez or Jones in a trade, while one of them could fully take over for Grisham out in center field in 2027. If they move Dominguez, Jones could develop more in the minor leagues in 2026, or if they move Jones, Dominguez could be in the mix as more of a fourth outfielder next year. Now, if they didn't bring back Bellinger, I think one of them could be used to bring in a more established player like Brendan Donovan, who has a lot of versatility. I think that would fit this team very well, or Stephen Kwan. Both those guys could fill the leadoff spot, which the Yankees do need to address. Whatever it is, I think the Yankees are primed to make some kind of a trade. I could also see them making a move or two for the bullpen, especially after Devin Williams went to the Mets and Luke Weaver's a free agent. So I think you could use an arm or two back here. Do they go after more of a setup guy to go behind David Bednar? There are quite a few arms out there. Or could they go after one of the top closers on the market and put Bednar in more of a setup role? Could you imagine the Yankees landing Edwin Diaz after the Mets landed Devin Williams? I mean, my goodness, that would be absolute cinema if you ask me. If not him, maybe Robert Suarez, who had 40 saves last year. Maybe they could make a call about Pete Fairbanks, who has a lot of experience in the AL East pitching for the Rays. That would be a big arm for the Yankees to add to the bullpen. Whatever it is, I could see the Yankees making a move or two, especially for the back end of the bullpen. At one point, I thought the idea of the Diamondbacks trading Ketel Marte was absolutely bananas, but now I say we end up seeing a trade. Now, not too long ago, General Manager Mike Hazen said he had been getting plenty of calls about many players, including Ketel Marte, and while he did say a move was unlikely, he also said it would be irresponsible not to listen. And I think with all the buzz that we've been hearing there, I say he ends up giving in, trades Marte, but not at a cheap price. Now, Marte is going to cost a lot, and I expect Hazen to set a high price because he is one of the better players in the game on a team-friendly contract. However, they need pitching in Arizona, so I think a deal where they could acquire some high-upside arms along with a bat to replace him is something they wouldn't be able to turn down in the end. And you got to think with Arizona, they got a lot of younger guys in the mix right now. Jordan Lawler, their first-round pick from not too long ago, looks like he's major league ready. You got Tommy Troy, who's hitting well down in the minor leagues. He was their first-round pick a couple of years ago. You got someone like Blaze Alexander there who has some versatility. So I think the D-backs would be fine moving on from Marte. Again, if they can get a good arm for the rotation, maybe a bat to replace him. How about the Red Sox for either Jarren Duran or Wilyer Abreu, along with some pitching like Brian Bayo, who's also on a team-friendly contract, or a high-upside prospect like Peyton Tolley or Connolly Early. Maybe the Reds for some kind of a package that could include Andrew Abbott or Nick Lodolo and a bat like Noel V. Marte, Sal Stewart, or Matt McClain. Perhaps the Royals in some kind of a swap for Cole Reagans. There's plenty of other teams that could use bats as well, like the Pirates or the Guardians, or maybe an upgrade at second base like the Giants. Whatever it is, I think an offer ends up coming in that's too good to turn down, and eventually Marte gets moved. One thing we've seen that's a bit different this offseason so far are the small market teams in the headlines, so I think one of them are going to make a move. Now, like I said earlier, the Reds are in the mix for Kyle Schwarber. The Pirates have made a couple of moves, including trading Johan Oviedo to the Red Sox for the password Joe Stinson Garcia, and we've seen the Marlins popping up in the reliever market, and even for Michael King, along with being open to dealing any of their starters other than Uri Perez. We've also seen the Royals president of baseball operations saying they're open to trading a starting pitcher to help with their outfield, which has sorely lacked in offense over the last few years. By the end of the winter meetings, I say at least one of those teams makes some kind of a signing or trade. Up next, a bit of a boring one, but I say Tarik Skubal stays put. Now, I think we'll definitely hear some chatter, but in the end, I think the asking price is going to remain too high for him, who's pretty much only going to be a rental at this point. Now, I'm not saying I don't think he's going to get traded this offseason, but the Tigers don't have to make a trade right now, especially when there's still so many options on the board in free agency to add to your rotation. Now, I think it's more likely that if they do move him, it's going to be later on in the offseason when all the options have come off the board. So if a team out there is looking for starting pitching and they have the prospects to get it done for Skubal, then I think you could make that pivot. I've already talked before on this channel the teams that I think would make sense for him. I think the Mets could make some sense. The Mariners have a lot of prospects over there. I think the Orioles could maybe do something. The Yankees are always looking to make blockbusters. I've already talked about that in this video. So I think Skubal could get moved this offseason, but I don't think it's going to be at the winter meetings. However, I think we'll hear some rumors. I will say this, though. I think the winter meetings could be a great spot to lay down groundwork on a possible deal. Speaking of starting pitching, I think the Cubs land themselves an arm for the rotation. Now, we just had another infamous Bob Nightingale tweet that didn't work out so well, saying the Cubs were finalizing an agreement for Zach Gallen, which brought out Jeff Passan from the top rope to put a nail in it. However, I will say this. That tells me the Cubs in some way, shape, or form are looking to add someone to the rotation, which isn't exactly breaking news by any means, since it has been reported this offseason that they are looking to add to the rotation. rotation. Now, I think by the end of the winter meetings, they're going to have an arm signed, whether that ends up being Gallen or perhaps someone in that tier like Ranger Suarez, Michael King, or maybe even Tatsuya Imai, who they have been connected to a little bit. People have also seen them as a fit for Framber Valdez, but after not landing Dylan Cease, I wonder if he's also going to be out of their price range, so I could see them going for one of the lower tier guys. On to the Dodgers, and I say they land a big arm for the back end of the bullpen. Now, you know they're always lurking on the market, but one big need for them is to find a reliable closer. Now, they were hoping Tanner Scott was going to be that guy after signing him last offseason, but after a shaky year, I think it's better off to use him in more of a setup role, maybe an occasional save opportunity, and go after a guy that you know can lock a game down. Now, for the Dodgers, I have my eyes on a couple of closers. You got Edwin Diaz and Robert Suarez. Now, with the Mets signing Devin Williams, I can't help but wonder if that means they're done with the bullpen or they still plan on bringing back Diaz. If not, that could be a huge opening for the Dodgers, who have been linked to Diaz as a possible destination this offseason. Now, if they end up not wanting to spend the money on him, I could see them pivoting to Robert Suarez. I mean, hey, the Dodgers have a knack for breaking Padres fans' hearts all across the land, just like they did last year with Roki Sasaki, so perhaps they do that with Suarez. Now, he's about to turn 35, which probably means he's going to get a shorter deal, and I could see the Dodgers being interested in that. Let's wrap this up with the team that came so close to beating the Dodgers in the World Series, the Blue Jays. And I say they make a splash of some sort. Now, they've already made the biggest signing this offseason so far with Dylan Cease, so I say they keep up the momentum. Now, they've already been linked heavily to Kyle Tucker even after the Cease signing, so perhaps they come to a conclusion on that. If they think he's too expensive, though, maybe they could turn back to Bo Bichette and try to figure out a reunion. They've also been linked to Kazuma Okamoto recently, according to John Heyman, so there's plenty of options out there for the Blue Jays to add a bat. It doesn't end there, though. They've also been linked to the reliever market, and I'm not surprised about that after the down year from Jeff Hoffman and the blown save in Game 7 of the World Series. There's plenty of big names out there. We just talked about a couple of them with Edwin Diaz and Robert Suarez. There's also Pete Fairbanks, who I mentioned has experience in the AL East, so maybe that could be a fit, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see the Blue Jays land one of them. And also, don't forget, they just signed Cody Ponce, so what does that mean for Jose Barrios? He's on a pretty decent-sized contract, so I wonder if they would like to move that at this point. I could see teams out there liking the durability he has. He usually gives you a ton of innings, so I could see them looking to move him. Could they do it at the winter meetings? In the end, there's a lot of options for the Blue Jays. They could add to this lineup. They could trade Jose Barrios or add someone for the back end of the bullpen. There's a ton of options here, and I expect the Blue Jays to be very active at the winter meetings. But everybody, those are my predictions for the winter meetings. Let me know yours down below in the comments. Tell me what you think about my predictions. Tell me what you think is going to happen. It's going to be a fun week like it usually is at the winter meetings. But everybody, that's all I got for right now. If you're kind of the way out, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.